Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Today is one of the busiest travel days of the year at the San Diego International Airport. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. KPBS reporter Melissa May shows us what the airport looks like ahead of the Thanksgiving holiday.
We caught up with El Cajon resident Brianna Flores and her dog Opal as they were getting ready to head to Texas for the Thanksgiving holiday. She told us, so far, so good.
For it being a weekday and very close to Thanksgiving, I thought it was really good.
Her husband was parking the car, and that's one thing that can be tricky if you don't already have a reservation. Airport parking was at capacity this afternoon. But the airport's Nicole Hall says there are other ways to get there.
We have a free shuttle that'll take you from the Old Town Transit Center. There's the 992 bus, there's rideshare, or have a friend drop you off.
For those who haven't driven to the airport in a while, things have changed. Hall had this advice about the new entrance to Terminal 1.
When you're driving on westbound North Harbor Drive, get into your right lane and anticipate that there will be an exit that comes up a little bit sooner. Watch for directional signs and know that there could be slow-moving construction vehicles that can slow down traffic.
Once you get there, things are going to be busy. Lines have already started to form everywhere at the airport, at departure and arrival areas, airline check-in counters, and of course at TSA security.
We anticipate seeing as many as 84,000 people coming through the airport every day.
The Auto Club of Southern California's Ann Jane Venegas has these tips for traveling.
Just make sure you arrive to the airport 2 hours before if it's a domestic flight, 3 hours before if it's an international flight. Just make sure you download the airline's app and that you have those notifications. You're getting those notifications so that if there are any changes to your flight, you're the first one to find out.
Pack your patience and to come to the airport and to, anticipate that there will be other people doing the exact same thing you're doing.
Brianna Flores says traveling with her dog means more than packing her patience.
Getting her used to her crate before we do traveling, so making sure that we practice putting her in there, leaving her in there for a while since we know that she has to stay in there the entire flight. I also make sure that I provide her with blankets or any toys that she's used to playing with at home, just so she has like familiar scents.
Next stop, the scents of turkey and pumpkin pie. Melissa May, KPBS News.
And as holiday travelers bustle through the airport, they might look up and see some art. In a few minutes, we take a look at some of the pieces that you can find there. The number of flight delays has been climbing steadily throughout the day as heavy winds and rain sweep through the Northeast. And for those with late flights, sleet and snow could snarl your plans. Lori Geary with more on how this busy travel day is shaping up.
I thought it would be like this, so I'm actually 3 hours in advance for my flight.
I got here early because I'm slow.
It's pretty crazy, but it could be worse.
Could be worse indeed, given the heavy rainstorms and gusty winds lingering over several Northeast major airline hubs Wednesday, all while more than 55 million people are expected to be on the move by air and highway for the Thanksgiving holiday, according to AAA.
I was looking at the weather and I was kind of worried.
In New England, forecasters say snowfall will be winding down, but not before some inland areas possibly see several inches. And a new storm pushing into the Rockies will dump snow over several states like Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho, where winter alerts could translate into delays for West Coast travelers over the next few days.
The weather always is the key, and then there's air traffic controller shortages, but the weather will be the key. We've been working with the FAA to adjust routes to move things around.
And a heads up for the trip home for many, the Transportation Security Administration estimates nearly 3 million people could come through their airport lines on Sunday, the highest number ever recorded in the TSA's 20-year history, the agency says. Your best bet, go early, get through security, then relax.
I'm just chilling now.
I'm Laura Aguirre for KPBS News.
The Ocean Beach Pier will stay closed for at least the next few months. That's according to city officials who say recent storm damage and the potential for more is what's behind the decision. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman says some in OB are not happy about it.
I don't want to see them make the decision. I want the people to make the decision. It is our taxpayer dollars that is doing all this.
News of the Ocean Beach Pier's extended closure isn't sitting well with some residents.
I'm looking at the water now, and I don't see any storm out there. I don't see anything happening, you know. I mean, if the water's fine and there's no big surf, I think that people should go out and fish and do their thing that they like to do.
City officials closed the pier back in late October following damage, and with the potential for more damaging storms this winter, the decision was made to keep it closed.
They may see the pier and it looks fine, but our engineers have been underneath. They've seen the structural integrity and determined that at this point it's best to keep it closed.
City officials say it's costly to keep repairing it when it's likely more damage will come. They say public safety is their priority.
Depending how things go this winter season, if it's only moderate storms and moderate damage, light to moderate, something that our crews can handle, we might be able to get it open later in the spring. If it receives significant damage, it may not open till later in the summer.
The 57-year-old pier is a major attraction in OB, something that local business groups say brings a lot of people to their neighborhood.
I'm sad about it. It really does affect us here, every business here, and it cuts down on the amount of people coming down to shop.
Denny Knox with the Ocean Beach Main Street Association wants to see a temporary fix, whether that's installing some type of fencing or other repairs.
We would love to have a pot of money that is, that we can use, the city can use to keep it open.
City officials say they've spent $1.7 million fixing the pier over the last 5 years. A 2018 study found that the pier had, quote, reached the end of its service life. So a task force was created for the future, which the city says likely involves replacing the pier.
Of course, that's really still in the imagination phase. And so we're in this kind of in between a rock and a hard place with continuing to put money into the current OB pier and keep those repairs going to keep it open, sometimes for only months at a time.
OB Town Council President Corey Bruin sits on the task force. He says feedback from San Diegans about future plans are welcomed.
The next couple of years are going to be difficult for sure. And I think that, on behalf of organizations in the community, we just ask everyone for patience and understanding, really, as the city decides what to do with the pier in the short term and in the long term.
Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
The city of Imperial Beach is bracing for another wet winter. KPBS South Bay reporter Corey Suzuki says officials are hoping that residents will use rain barrels to prepare.
And tonight I'll be giving a presentation on the rain barrel guidelines that staff developed for the city of Imperial Beach.
The city of Imperial Beach recently adopted a new set of guidelines for rain barrels. Rain barrels are generally seen as a way to conserve water for things like irrigation. But Imperial Beach also sees them as one way to fight some of the challenges brought on by sea level rise. San Diego State University professor Hassan Devani has been studying this.
Rising sea levels are already causing flooding and underground flooding to the infrastructure, to the basements of their elementary schools, for example.
As tides rise, Devani says, seawater moves inland, underneath the city of Imperial Beach. That pushes the fresh water underground upwards, forcing it through cracks in the city's stormwater pipes, and increasing the chances of flooding. More rain barrels, he says, will take more pressure off of the city's aging infrastructure.
That delays what exactly the system needs right now because it cannot handle all this huge amount of water at the same time.
Corey Suzuki, KPBS News.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, Israelis and Palestinians react to the deal for a pause in fighting and the release of some hostages. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Imagine a museum that exposed unique contemporary art to more than 50,000 visitors a day. But it's not a museum. It's the San Diego International Airport. KPBS Arts producer Julia Dixon Evans takes a closer look at the unexpected public art travelers might see.
It's safe to say that virtually nobody visits an airport just to see some art. But in some ways, that's the point. This unintentional, unwitting glimpse of art and culture is part of the lore of airport arts programs around the world. The San Diego airport's environment means people are hyper-focused on the tasks in front of them, like getting through security or catching a flight. Daniel Dennert is curator of the arts program.
There's all of those kind of inputs going into a person's mind, so finding ways that create this moment where people are like, oh, wait, and they kind of come out of this maybe subconscious rhythm, and they really say, oh, that is different.
Katie Norman, Airport Arts Program Manager, says the art has tangible purposes beyond the aesthetics.
Airports across the country have actually started creating these art programs that include public art, largely because they provide a sense of place. There are certain elements to our collection that create calming, because this can be a very tough experience for some people traveling.
Art in the San Diego airport costs just over 2 cents for each passenger who boards a plane. In terms of economic benefits, when passengers linger in terminals, they spend more on airport concessions. The program also creates jobs and pays artists. San Diego's airport art program includes temporary art exhibits, plus performing arts, and over 50 works more integrated into the architecture.
We do have a robust collection here. I would say that there are about 15 other airports across the country that also have airport programs of a similar caliber.
The temporary exhibit on view now is called A Necessary Departure, spotlighting what artists went through during the pandemic. Some of the works are pre-security, but others are post-security, so visitors need a plane ticket to see them. In one example, by Terry Hughes Ulrich, hundreds of lids and caps from single-use plastics are mounted on the wall and suspended from the ceiling like tiny works of art. It draws attention to the increased use of disposable products during the pandemic and the increased urgency for change.
The idea was you were looking at all these single-use plastics as if we were 10 years down the road. And the only way you would be able to see plastic, because you couldn't see it in the store anymore, is by actually going to museums.
There's also a gravity-defying sculpture made of old folding chairs by Jamie Franks, puzzle-like wooden portraits by Christopher Lloyd Tucker, and cosmic sculptures by Rebecca Webb. Border artist Alvaro Alvarez's Imperfect Boundaries is a series of 7 framed pieces tucked away in the airport's Be Relaxed lounge. Shapes are formed from a crowded tangle of painted black ink lines and symbols. The edges created by the many lines represent human and community borders. Borders and boundaries are a big theme for Alvarez. He says it means more that his work is experienced by viewers outside of traditional art boundaries.
You know, when I describe Imperfect Boundaries, I use our border as a metaphor between Tijuana and San Diego. But to have an airport setting as a gallery that is a transient space, that filters a passageway for people everywhere. An airport is essentially, you know, every literal gate to a plane is a threshold to cross.
A Necessary Departure will be on view throughout Terminal 2 until the end of the year, so harried holiday travelers still have time to take it in. An unexpected piece of art may grab their attention as they dash to their gates. Julia Dixon-Evans, KPBS News.
And the airport's next temporary exhibit, Espacios and Lines, will be unveiled next year. And if you'd like to see more from our public art series, just visit kpbs.org/publicart. November is Native American Heritage Month, and we're highlighting how indigenous communities are boosting the U.S. economy. A White House Tribal Nations Summit scheduled for next month is expected to discuss economic progress in and issues facing indigenous communities. Cole Higgins reports.
Members of America's indigenous communities are working hard to preserve their heritage and boost economic output.
A lot of our communities, they are the #1 employer in a region.
According to the National Center for American Indian Enterprise Development, tribal governments and their enterprises are seeing great success in building sustainable economies rooted in their cultural values, employing thousands of workers and generating billions in dollars in state, regional, and federal economies. And the organization organization's leadership says there's a growing effort to increase that success through intertribal trade and collaboration by creating new businesses and generating more jobs.
Those tribes are supporting states. They're supporting local economies. Many of our tribes are involved in tourism.
Next month, President Joe Biden is set to host leaders from some of the 574 federally recognized tribes at the White House to discuss ways the federal government can invest in and strengthen Native communities. Meanwhile, some communities are prioritizing continued self-reliance. One example is the Indian Nations Conservation Alliance, which created an intertribal exchange app that allows anyone to share and trade goods and services in a digital marketplace.
It empowers Indigenous people around the world to really add items and create abundance in their area.
Another example, an effort led by Native Hawaiians. The nation of Hawaii is signing peace and friendship treaties with federally recognized tribes to support each other and to amplify their economic and social goals worldwide. For Consumer Watch, I'm Cole Higgins.
For thousands of San Diegans who live in financially disadvantaged areas, there's limited access to fresh produce. KPBS reporter John Carroll tells us about a program that is changing that, one neighborhood corner store at a time.
It's something many of us take for granted. You need something from the grocery store, you hop in your car and go get it. But for many San Diegans, that's not an option. They live in areas known as food deserts. This Logan Heights neighborhood used to be one of those deserts, but not anymore. At Ideal Market on the corner of National Avenue and 31st Street, alongside all the candy and processed food, there's now something else: fresh fruits and vegetables. On Tuesday morning, the door chime at Ideal Market was sounding a lot.
We try to identify underserved communities where residents may have limited access to supermarkets, and we try to find stores that would be a good fit to carry fresh fruits and vegetables.
When she's not running the nonprofit Brightside Produce, Iana Castro is a professor of marketing at San Diego State. She co-founded the organization in 2017. Then they had 5 stores. Now they're up to 29. A team of staffers and student interns makes the rounds to all the stores every week.
02.
It starts with removing produce that's been on the shelf for a while. You might be wondering what happens to the produce that's past its prime. Well, I'm told nothing is wasted. Some of it is composted. What is still fine to eat is donated to various organizations in the community. Then, fresh produce is placed on the shelves by volunteers like Danielle Rogacion, a graduate student at SDSU and intern at Brightside Produce.
Having a connection with the corner stores and liquor stores, having access to all of those produce in a cheaper price will help families in the community just have food on the table.
Over 50% of deaths in the county of San Diego are due to chronic diseases.
Kate Mahoney is a community health program specialist with the county, which financially supports Brightside. A good investment, Mahoney says, in communities that really need it.
Our communities of color are disproportionately affected by lack of access to healthy food.
There's another positive to what Brightside does. Iana Castro says they try to buy as much food as possible from local farmers.
Well, currently we have 4 or 5 farm partners, and we don't always get food consistently from them, but when we do try to incorporate it, and we try to mark locally grown.
Castro says the goal is to get to the point where no one in the county will be more than a 10-minute walk from a store that sells fresh produce. They're getting there, one corner store at a time. John Carroll, KPBS News.
For 19 years, Mama's Kitchen has had an annual bake sale, and this year they're hoping to beat their fundraising goals. Starting this morning, Mama's Kitchen volunteers have been passing out previously purchased pies from their pickup location at Lips Restaurant on El Cajon Boulevard. Mama's Kitchen wanted to raise $130,000 this year to fund 52,000 nutritious meals that the organization helps to provide to those in need.
Mama's Kitchen's mission is to provide medically tailored, home-delivered meals to people with critical illnesses that are living with conditions like cancer, heart disease, HIV, chronic kidney disease, type 2 diabetes.
Established in 1990, Mama's Kitchen is the largest provider of home-delivered meals in San Diego, including medically tailored meals, all at no cost. In 2022, the organization delivered its 11 millionth meal.
Well, some temperature changes coming up as we work our way into a Thursday for Thanksgiving. The low clouds will be persistent, but we will notice a change coming up next week for some. We're going to be talking about some milder air for others. It's going to stay on the cooler side. Let's dive into the short term as we head our way into tonight. That onshore flow, what does that mean? Clouds around, especially from the coast towards some of the interior valleys. Oceanside down to 47, 53 in Chula Vista, down to 41 in Mount Laguna. With Futurecast, again, you can also start to see what's going to take shape and form as we work our way down the road into Friday. And notice the moisture beginning to pool again here right along the shoreline. There could even be some sprinkles around. I think we're dry here again as we work our way throughout the overnight time frame. And if your travels take you north or east on this Thursday for the holiday here, it's going to be dry and it will be on the mild side. But as I mentioned, as we work our way into Friday, some of that moisture right along the shoreline into some of the interior valleys could also produce a few sprinkles out there. It'll keep temperatures down. We turn those numbers around, though, as we go from Sunday to Monday with more sunshine, the winds blowing a little more offshore. Could see some gusty winds heading into next week as well. You want to stay tuned for that. Meanwhile, inland, we drop down to 66 on Friday with some sprinkles. And then here, too, we'll notice more sunshine with a milder afternoon Sunday and also into Monday. Heading into the mountainous terrain, though, here's the difference. We're not going to be warming things up. Instead, we're going to be on the chilly side here, starting up this weekend, going right into early next week, despite there being some sunshine. Overnight lows dropping into the 20s. And throughout the deserts here, too, our warmest day in the short term on Thursday. And then highs will be sliding and staying put into the 60s, despite mostly sunny skies. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Pavic.
Fewer shoppers will line up outside their favorite stores to snag the biggest Black Friday deals, and more will shop from the comfort of their own home. Every holiday season brings more tricks to finding the best prices and more shopping scams to avoid. Karen Kaifa has more.
The big retail deals used to come just one day a year. Now some come before Black Friday.
Really, the deals are everywhere. They're online, and you can do it all before you eat the Thanksgiving dinner this time.
Bridget Carey tracks online shopping trends for CNET. She says sales will continue all season, but getting a head start may get you the best deals.
What we're seeing right now is that this is where the hottest sales are up until Cyber Monday, but you will start seeing sales still trickle in afterward because of how competitive retailers are right now.
Before diving in, do the research, make a list and round up coupons, old gift cards and credit card points that could help save money, and keep multiple browser tabs open while shopping to comparison shop between retailers.
The bottom line is do a quick Google search. See if what one retailer has is really the lowest price.
Meanwhile, the Better Business Bureau says consumers should use a credit card for online purchases in case suspicious charges need to be contested. If an online seller is unfamiliar, read reviews and look for a legitimate customer service contact. And phishing scams are especially popular during the holidays. Think twice before clicking on a link in an email or a text that appears to be about a delivery issue or an unexpected gift. In Washington, I'm Karen Kaifa.
And Thanksgiving is a big weekend for movies. KPBS film critic Beth Accomando is here to help you sort through the cinematic offerings to find something to be grateful for.
In the 2007 film Grindhouse, a fake trailer promised,
"This holiday season, prepare to have the stuffing scared out of you."
It's taken 16 years for Eli Roth to turn that teaser into the feature film Thanksgiving, but it arrives as a holiday horror treat. It opens with a Black Friday sale where a mob hopped up on rabid consumerism turns violent. Cut to a year later, and a pilgrim serial killer is cooking up revenge on those he deems guilty of causing the mayhem. Thanksgiving is the third fake Grindhouse trailer to get a movie spinoff, the other two being Robert Rodriguez's Machete and Jason Eisener's Hobo with a Shotgun. All three have made the transition to the big screen with inspired success. For Thanksgiving, Roth trades in the grunge of the trailer's 80s Grindhouse look for a much slicker horror style. But he takes the trailer's events and faithfully recreates them for the feature film with the genius new addition of the Black Friday carnage. Roth also finds a vigor and satiric bite that's been missing from his work, and that's something to be grateful for. Now, if we can just get a movie from Edgar Wright's fake trailer, don't.
If you are thinking of seeing this film alone, don't.
And now for something not to be thankful for, Ridley Scott's overstuffed historical biopic of Napoleon. Scott has a visual flair for period pictures, but he's less skilled at connecting us emotionally to his characters. His film starts strong, with Napoleon displaying his strategic acumen to turn a siege to the advantage of the French, and displaying Scott's ability to stage action. The other highlight is a strikingly shot battle on ice that captures the brutality of war, but in a visually stylish manner.
Cavalry from the west! Here's their flanks!
But as the film progresses through its nearly 3-hour runtime, it never finds a balance between the epic and the intimate. It also fails to provide any insights into Napoleon or what made him tick. In fact, Scott and the perpetually scowling Joaquin Phoenix give us a Napoleon that's almost a caricature. Despite occasional visual spectacle, Scott's Napoleon fails as history and biography, and even as just an entertaining piece of cinema. If you're not inspired to celebrate Thanksgiving with either a bore fest or a gore fest, then here's a lush classic, newly restored, and opening at Digital Gym Cinema Friday. Chen Kaiga's Farewell My Concubine. The film helped launch what became known as the 5th generation of Chinese filmmakers. It screens in its full, uncut glory, so if you're looking for a classy way to spend the holiday in a cinema, this is the perfect option. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following: by viewers like you. Thank you.